more than 30 times. Usually, he was able to escape and elude long-term prison stays, but not always. Yoon was imprisoned for 3 lengthy terms, including a 4-year term during which he fasted from food and water for a period of 74 days. Although it is considered medically impossible for someone to survive that long without water, God sustained him. During those 4 years, he underwent intense torture, including repeated beatings with the whip and multitude shocks with an electric baton. Later on, Yoon was held in a maximum security prison in Zhengzhou. To ensure that he would never escape the prison, the guards beat Yoon's legs until he was crippled. Despite this, Brother Yoon walked out of the prison 6 weeks later. Gates and barriers that were always closed and barred were miraculously opened. No guard tried to stop him. It was as though he were invisible to them. It wasn't until he was outside and safe that Brother Yoon realized he was walking on his broken legs. Brother Yoon and his family came to Germany in September 2001 after escaping China, where Yoon is still wanted by the police. They now encourage believers around the world by sharing what God has done and is doing in China and many other places. That is just an amazing, amazing story. And what's amazing about it is that this guy, he goes to jail, gets his legs, he goes to jail 30 times. Me, maybe after 2 or 3 times, I would probably tone down my gospel preaching. But he went 30 plus times, and then he got his legs beaten the last time, broken and whipped, and the electric batons on him. Yet, he loves God so much and had the love for the other people so much that he went back again and again and again preaching the gospel. That is an unreal love. In America, if that happened to me and the guards beat my legs and I was down on the ground, I'd be coming out, hiring a lawyer and suing him. I mean, that's the American way, right? But is that the Christian way? Doesn't God promise us that he will seek vengeance on those who did wrong against us? That's what Brother Yoon, he's practicing love. I mean, I would hope that if I was persecuted like that, I would be able to stand and continue to show love to those who are persecuting me. I would really, really hope I could do that. But I won't know until that time comes. But it's just an amazing story. I have a video clip here now of persecution that recently went on in India, and it just moves me every time watching it.
And just what does this love look and sound like? Nothing quite captures love at its most potent form like persecution. That is the true test of God's love and the power it holds. Here, let me show you. I'd like to introduce you to my friend Shanti. We've had to change her name to protect her. Shanti lives in India and travels all over spreading the good news of Jesus to the poor. She has a school and is creating a home for children from the lowest caste in India, the untouchables. But she will be the first to admit that India is not a place for the spiritually faint of heart.
The demonic here is not like abstract. It's like it's in everything. It's not here a little, there a little. It has seeped through everything. It started in May, June, July, and then August was really bad. And then it didn't really stop, the persecution, and nobody knew about it from outside because no media was allowed to come in even then. So nobody knew that it actually started so long ago. So many homes burned. So many families killed. And they first burned one of the churches so that when they would burn the homes, that the families would not have a place to hide. Like every family that they were going from home to home, they ran out thinking they will hide in the church, and they saw the church burning. They didn't know where to go. The husband would say, okay, take the kids, run to the forest. So they were literally splitting up that way. But in the morning, the wives couldn't find their husbands, and the husbands couldn't find their children or their wives. Of course, days later they found out kids were killed, husbands were killed, wives were killed, so they ended up with like so many members of the family just gone.
एते बड़ बड़ खंडा ठेंगा एते बड़ बड़ काटी धरि की पूरा एमती एमती जो करू छंती आमे जो खाली से समय एमती खाली थरुछु
सेई अपना इलाजी में कितने खड़े खड़े देखो
18 pastors within one night they were murdered. And then I just asked my father, how did this all happen? Then he said that I don't know anything. The mob just went inside the house and they just cut the pastor. They just separated his neck from his body. And then I asked Jesus, oh God, why is this all happening to us? Why is this all? We didn't do anything. We didn't kill that guy, na? So why are you giving punishment to us? Then my mom said that, no, you're lucky that you have been part of this. You know, it's written in the Bible that blessed are the people who are persecuted for the name of Christ.
And a friend of ours, of course, wrote and said, it's Christmas today. We celebrate one who was born to give love. We too, Lord, to die, just like Christ, so our nation gets to know His great love.
Yeah, well, it gets me every time. I love that line where she says, we need to die so that our nation gets to know God's great love. Like, they understand that. Them dancing in the church there at the end was after all that persecution happened. It's one of the last churches standing. And yeah, that's happening every day around the world. And we just complain about the little things. And they stay there because they love the people they're with. They even love those that are persecuting them. And it's just unreal. I get a magazine called Voice of the Martyrs. I get it monthly, and in that magazine, it tells of horrific stories that happen around the world. But throughout every story is the consistent line of love that carries through every single story. And that's a love that only comes from God into our lives. And a way to show that love to others, I think a lot of times, like these people who became persecuted, is to give up your own rights. Just like Jesus gave up his rights to the throne. And he came down to earth to show his love for all of us by giving up all that he had. And we need to do the same. So now that we know all this, when I taught the youth, I was challenged, like, okay, God, they just left. Now what? What do we do now? What do we do with all this information? In the early church, we see examples of the apostles would give great teachings, and things would happen, things would change. They would go out, and things would change. I think a lot of times in churches we hear great messages, and we give it amen, and I agree with that, but we go out and nothing changes. Nothing happens at all. We get back into our little selfish lives and kind of put back in our mind Yeah, that was good, but God can't possibly want me to do now. I got too much growing to do. But he does. So God wanted me to get in right away, and he presented me with an awesome opportunity where I got to team up with the gentleman from the First Baptist Church in Mount Holly. His name is Frank Punzi, and he put together an amazing ministry called the Brown Bag Brigade. And through this ministry, they give bag lunches and meals actually to the homeless throughout Bordentown, Mount Holly, Browns Mills, Pemberton. A lot of homeless that get this, and they actually look for them every single Wednesday. So we do it one Wednesday a month with them, and we are going to be doing it every Wednesday during the summer. In that time, opened my eyes to how many homeless people there are. Like where I live in Mount Holly, there's a tent community right behind my house, like literally probably like 500 yards behind my house. And my eyes weren't open to it until this act of love. So I got involved in this act of love. But God then convicted me again. He said, these are other people you're serving. Like, yeah, that's great and all, you're serving them, but they're humans. They're no less equal than you. And he showed me this verse. This is in Luke 14, it says, Then Jesus said to his host, When you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid on the resurrection of the righteous. And that really is like, whoa, all right. That's really cut me deep. So I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? And this idea came to my mind, and we're gonna have this event at the First Baptist Mount Holly Church. They have the facilities to host it, but we're gonna host a dinner for the homeless. And it's gonna be like where we just serve them and like, oh yeah, get your food, keep going. You know, we're gonna sit down and we serve them. And what I'm really hoping is that they see our love for them. Now, we're not doing it out of guilt. We're doing it because we honestly love them, as if they were Jesus themselves. And I believe it's a big risk to take. Everybody I talk to, like, well, you know, they're there's some dangerous homeless people. They're drunk people. There's this and that. But man, I looked through the Bible and I never saw any like cautions. Any asterisk saying